Chapter 2. How did I discover the garden? Well, this is by chance and curiosity. I was writing a book about the future of manned exploration of the planet Mars. But in years before, as a young student in Latin Greek studies, I had also done extensive reading on the fantastic history of Egypt. The two subjects were not supposed to have anything to do with each other, that is, outside the realm of fantastic ideas. Very unexpectedly, it just clicked when one morning in February 2017 I remembered that some place names for the region around Cairo also mean place of Mars. This memory from long ago, picked up in a documentary about Egypt, made my heart pound, and I did not understand immediately why. Somehow, my visceral, bodily reaction betrayed this might mean something. The kings of Egypt were ordained to keep the order between the celestial realm and the terrestrial realm. Order is maat, as opposed to chaos in the heavens and on earth. This mandate of heaven is a mandate known also to the ancient emperors of China. This mandate entitles the king to use the stick, or violence. We see, for instance, King Menes wielding the mace on the northern pallet. Also notice the animals on the backside of the pallet to the right. With long necks, similar to a brontosaur, surely this must be a fantasy animal. Scholars naturally agree about this. Eden will show us where the artist might have gotten the inspiration. The pyramid texts talk of the dead king traveling to the stars, to become Osiris or as Osiris or Sa in the sky. But while he is alive, he is like Horus, the falcon god. When we look at the pictures, we see Sa, Orion with raised arm. The mace of King Menes became the bow of Orion the hunter. Throughout history, the constellation was depicted interchangeably with either bow or mace. The living king of Egypt is a terrestrial representative of the living god Horus. The kings of Egypt in pre-dynastic times were known as the followers of Horus. Horus is not only the god of kingship, as Red Horus, he is also the planet Mars. The kings of Egypt were followers of the planet Mars. The white area around Gizeh is known as the place of Mars. In the 1990s, Robert Bauval discovered a link between the three pyramids and the constellation of Orion. In the early 2000s, British author Andrew Collins discovered a link between the Gizeh plateau and the Cygnus constellation. Cygnus is a swan or a bird. Horus is a falcon god, which is also a bird. Andrew Collins wrote a book about the importance of stellar swan symbolism in ancient cultures. He had a hunch this might also apply to Egypt. But if Cygnus was present on the Gizeh plateau, he needed something corresponding to all of its stars. Cygnus has 5 main stars, but Gizeh has only 3 large pyramids. He inferred that Gebel Gibli, a rocky outcrop to the east of the Sphinx, could be important. Gebel Gibli signifies southern hill, but it was also the place of a sacred well and the sacred Egyptian sycamore trees. But Gebel, which means mountain, also sounds like Geb, the earth deity, who has a goose as a symbol and is called the Great Gaggler, another bird. Geb is the counterpart of the sky goddess Nut, and in this depiction, this fresco, we see Geb lying underneath Nut. Geb is often depicted with a goose on his head. A goose is not a swan, but it is similar. They are waterfowl. In ancient cultures, water always had a celestial meaning. That is why Egyptian gods ride boats across the celestial waters. If the goose of Geb is part of the waterfowl, can it not shine among the stars of the constellation of Cygnus? Andrew Collins linked the 3 pyramids and Gebel Gibli to the main stars of the Swan constellation. We see the stars Glenna, Albireo, Delta, Deneb, and Sadr. Andrew Collins discovered one star rested on the plateau, without any structural mound linking to it above ground. Andrew Collins thus could not associate Deneb with a structure on the ground. However, on that location, according to Gizeh survey maps, the star superimposed a known fault line below ground. He found old references to a cave below ground at Gizeh, which ran from the edge to the middle of the plateau. On his next expedition to Egypt, he rediscovered the cave at the edge of the plateau. This cave extended to the place where Deneb would rest. That cave, filled with red ochre, was also filled with bird mummy offerings. Birds are the messengers of the gods, and in ancient times the planets were the most important gods. Thus the question must be asked, were these birds supposed to take the offerings to the planetary god of Mars? Does the void, red color, and darkness of the cave represent or evoke the red color of Mars, or a star, maybe, in the Cygnus constellation? Taking a closer look, I noticed the Cygnus constellation has a red spot in it, close to the top star Deneb. This is the American Nebula, which looks like a bird. Again, we see a bird, Cygnus, connected to a red bird-like nebula, the American Nebula, just as Horus, another bird, is connected to the red planet Mars. From afar, this red hue hints to the red color and sphere of the planet Mars. Are we finding Mars in Cygnus? What we can say is that both travel across the sky, and maybe they are indeed intended to be linked in this manner. I started to wonder whence or where to the Swan and Mars flew. But I needed a methodology, and I decided Robert Bauval's approach could help. Robert projected the pyramids on the sky to make his point. Or maybe did the builders project the sky on the plan of Gizeh? Maybe we should get help from Thoth, the god who gave knowledge, wisdom, and writing to humanity. The Greeks matched him with Hermes and made him into Hermes the thrice great. The god Thoth, according to Hermetic tradition, once said, "That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of the one only thing." Confused by what it means? Don't worry. Modern man is no longer used to mixing poetry with science, or spirituality with matter. Hermetic texts are often meant to be only understood after trying to apply and experience them. They recognize that when we teach or learn, we transform ourselves. Their method to attain wisdom is also a form of trial and error. This means we need not despair, because the meaning of the text will come to us with trial and error. I did not know what the one, only, or great thing was. But in all Hermetic texts, there is the understanding of the relation between the macro and the microcosm, the large and the small, the living matter and the dead matter, the inner and the outer. We see the same patterns wherever we look, slightly altered, deformed. We find clues in attention to deformed patterns. But there is still yet another clue. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below. Notice that this verse is a mirroring of words, or is it a mirroring of something else? Thoth tells us to mirror what is on earth into the sky, and to mirror what is in the sky upon earth. Importantly, Thoth tells us that after ascending, we must descend again. But what is mirrored is not the same. It is alike, not equal to. The Pyramids of Gizeh told me they were connected to the planet Mars. The falcon bird of Horus and the swan bird of Cygnus invited me to fly into a dark void. The plateau has red everywhere, and even the Sphinx sometimes had names connected to Mars. Traces of red pigment have been found on the Sphinx, so even its face was red during a part of its history. Is this another reference to Mars? Red stones inside the pyramid, red stones in an empty dark void in the cave of the bird mummy. The emptiness of space is a dark void. The planet Mars is a red stone hanging in a dark void. Are we to find more clues to a connection between the Gizeh plateau and the planets? Yes, we believe the pyramids are not only tombs, but also represent our closest planets. King Cheops, Khafre and Menkaure all have a cartouche with a hieroglyph or ideogram for a sun in it, or might this symbol represent a planet? Often described as a solar religion, we find merit in understanding the Egyptian cult as one tracking the order of all that is in the sky, including the stars and planets and comets. Ge, the Greek prefix ge, means earth, and we find this prefix in the modern words geo, geode, geography, and Gaia. It might be inspired on the Egyptian prefix k, which we propose could mean earth, but also planet or planetary body, and which is represented by a circle. Therefore, we link the Pyramid of Cheops with the planet Earth.
The KH sound, which means geo or geode, and refers to Earth but also maybe to a geode of a planet, not only appears in the name of Khufu, it also appears in the name of Menkaure and Khafre. So all three builders have the KH sound in their names. This explains why the names of all three builders and all three pyramids could refer to three distinct planets.
The name Khafre might in turn be related to Kaf or Aphrodite, the Cypriot Greek name for Venus. Therefore, we link the Pyramid of Khafre with the planet Venus. Venus happens to be 85% of the volume of Earth and has predominantly a white color when seen from a distance. The Pyramid of Khafre has 86% the volume of the Pyramid of Cheops, and it also predominantly has a white color, which is the result of using white Jura limestone. It also has an enclosing wall in the shape of the symbol for Isis. Isis sometimes replaces Hathor, a goddess often associated with Venus. According to us, King Menkaure appears to be related to Makeris, the Tripolitan god, which is also a form of Mars. Tripoli lies on the North African coast above the Sahara. Therefore, we believe the planet Mars is related to the Pyramid of Menkaure. Mars has two dominant colors. It has a red color at the equator and it has white polar caps. The Pyramid of Menkaure also has two dominant colors. It has a red color at the base for the first 15 to 20 courses and it has a white top. A visual correspondence thus exists. But the size correspondence also exists. The size of the Pyramid of Menkaure is as small compared to the Pyramid of Khafre and Cheops as the planet Mars is compared to the planets Venus and Earth. When we look at the statue of Menkaure, we see that the king is flanked by two representations of the planet Venus, Hathor and Bat. The Pyramid of Menkaure, in turn, sits against the wall in the shape of the throne of Isis, which starts behind Khafre's pyramid. Isis has a throne symbol on her head. Horus is often depicted as a child sitting on his mother's Isis' lap. We know Horus is Mars. The throne of Venus sits behind Khafre, and we now know Menkaure is also Mars. The Pyramid of Menkaure, or Horus, sits on Isis' lap. We see that the Pyramid of Menkaure sits on the lap of the Pyramid of Khafre, or that the planet Mars is sitting on the lap of the planet Venus. We see Isis, Hathor, Venus being the mother, or Venus carrying Mars. But what does this relationship mean in celestial terms? How can one planet be a mother of another planet? And why is Isis Hathor called the House of Horus? Well, when the planet Venus, as the mother Isis Hathor, eclipses Mars in space, due to planetary orbital mechanics, periodically it visually floats in front of Mars. Mars, being more distant, then appears much smaller than Venus and occasionally disappears behind it. Venus thus can be described as a house in which Mars disappears and from which, after a short while, it re-emerges again, or more poetically, it is born from this mother, it emerges out of this house. Hathor is called the House of Horus, which we now understand as possibly meaning that Venus is the house in which Mars sometimes dwells, and Venus is the planet from which Mars is born. In astronomy, there are more extreme ideas about how a planet could give birth to another planet. Mythology suggests observation of such events, but they are not necessary for our story, so we will not dwell on it. Would the Pyramids of Gizeh be unique in referring to Mars or other planets? Let's find out. The father of Cheops was Sneferu. He built or was involved with 3 pyramids, and his red pyramid, depicted in the middle, is called this way because it has a core of reddish limestone. Again, Sneferu can be read as Sinifere. This is an ancient war god of Tunisia, associated with Mars. Sneferu's red-cored pyramid is also called Kai Sneferu. Again, the Ka sound we associated with the planet reappears. But let's take it further. Is it possible that the white part of Menkaure's pyramid represents the ice of the polar caps or the gas of the atmosphere of Mars, or maybe both? And what about the red pyramid of Sneferu? Egyptology says the red-cored pyramid has a white outer layer, This white layer could represent the white Martian atmosphere over the red surface of Mars. If we assume that white stone represents both an atmosphere and ice, it would be consistent with why other planetary pyramids also had a white casing, for instance the pyramids of both Cheops and Khafre. The first of the pyramid builders, Djoser, built a pyramid of 6 stacked mastabas. Because it has 6 layers, it has 7 levels, since the ground floor is also a level. The ancients knew of 7 planetary celestial spheres: the Earth, the Moon, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. Therefore, Djoser's pyramid could represent a little solar system, the heavens, represented in stone. Both Menkaure and Snefru have names referring to Mars gods, known in the North African coastal zone. Gizeh, the pyramids, and the cave told me at least one Pyramid of Gizeh was connected to Mars. But Thoth told me that if I desired to ascend, I also would have to descend again. Thus we already know that Mars will not be our final destination. Will the planet Mars tell us to descend again to Earth or give clues to that order? Chapter 3: Projecting Gizeh onto Mars.